Hey, can I get a popcorn? Can I get that popcorn with that extra butter? You got Twizzlers? You want to watch a movie? The show that discusses movies with the people who love them. Come get a piece of the bigger picture. It's your girl, DS Walls. I'm trying to catch these views from the back row. Cut. Cut. Welcome to Views from the Back Row, a movie podcast providing you with a real perspective on the movies. Just so you know, you can only find this show on the CWF network, where we bring you big content in small pieces. I'm your host, DS Walls, and I will never get a weave again. I am probably lying about that, but I am for sure traumatized for a while, and it is all thanks to newly released Hulu movie, Bad Hair. I have a lot of feelings about this movie, so let's get into it. This movie was written and directed by Justin Simien, who was the writer and director of Dear White People. He is back at it with another poignant story involving the Black community, this one focusing on the controversial topic of Black women's hair. And he does this conversation through the horror comedy film starring Vanessa Williams, Kelly Rowland, Lena Waithe, and relatively newbie in front of the screen, Ella Lorraine. On top of that, we also get to see Usher, Blair Underwood, Laverne Cox, and a slew of other people, including that Dawson Creek star, James Van Der Beek. So, now that you know who's in it, let's get into the feelings about it. So if you've seen this movie, then you know that it follows Ella Lorraine's character, Anna. So Anna works at pretty much what you would consider to be like, BET in the 80s. And it is being kind of changed up because it's too urban, I suppose. And so they want to streamline it, which is like underlining words for pretty much whiten it up. So her favorite boss gets fired or leaves, and they bring in light-skinned Vanessa Williams to change things up and push things in a different direction. And one of the first things she goes about doing is pretty much telling every Black woman in that office that they need to go and get a weave. A specific weave done by a specific hairstylist, and this is important. Anna falls into the trap of this mentality and runs right out to go and get herself one. It doesn't take long for her to start realizing that this is not a normal weave. Partially due to the fact that she's super tender-headed. But let's talk about that scene, because we all know that scene was the most terrifying moment of this movie. I have never felt like this watching a horror movie. I don't know if it's because I don't think I would ever actually be in a situation where something like this would happen to me, but watching that sewing happening where that needle was threading through those braids and the blood, I had to look away. I've never felt so horrified watching something, and that was really the tone of the first part of this movie. They did such a good job of setting this really uncomfortable feeling in your body based around her hair and hair in general. It starts off with her getting a perm and burning her scalp, and you seeing all that hair fall out and that little patch in the back of her head that's never gonna grow back normal. And then you move on to this scene where she's literally crying while she's getting her hair done, to the point where she passes out just for the standard of beauty. And I think that right there, just that alone, was saying so much. And I'm not gonna lie, it really affected me. The entire conversation surrounding her natural hair affected me. Obviously, the weave sewing affected me. I'm gonna be honest with you guys here. To this day, I still won't wear my natural hair to an interview. It's just not something I want to risk, as sellout as that is, when I'm walking in to try and get a new job. So I will wig it up. I will even sometimes braid it up, because I feel like that is more acceptable than the 4B hair that coils at the top of my head. So her feeling the need to change her appearance because Vanessa Williams' character blatantly points out the fact that other offices wouldn't even let her pass the reception's desk based off of the way that her hair is, really was real. It really is the truth. And the reason I don't wear my hair to interviews is because my mom, who grew up in that era of the 80s and the 90s, told me not to, told me that this would be an issue. So them setting this movie in that time period makes all of the sense in the world. Partially because we got to see this revolution with black people's hair in the 60s and the 70s, where they started wearing it natural, where they got rid of the curlers and the wigs and the la and the da. And then in the 80s and 90s, we saw ourselves really go back towards that silky, creamy crack, that feeling of westernization when it came to our hair. So setting it in the 80s, I think, was the best point of view to tell this movie from. So they did all of that really well. They set you in this really uncomfortable feeling, and I stayed in that feeling for at least half the movie. Like, I just have to address it, because I almost left my own house during this scene. I was so disgusted and uncomfortable, and it was like very horrific when that weave trickled down her body into her underwear to feed off of her Aunt Flo. I'll just say that. If you've seen it, you know it. If you haven't seen it, then you need to watch it, because it will ruin your day. And that's what a horror movie is supposed to do. It is supposed to ruin your day. And this one does that so well for the first half of the movie. So the great thing that Justin did was that he based this horror movie in slave folklore. I don't know if it's real slave folklore. I couldn't find any information on it. But he based the idea around a slave girl who walked through the forest, saw some hair or moss hanging on a tree, put it on her head, and it started to change her. And it was based on this ideology that wearing other people's hair is almost like transferring their emotions and their wants and their thoughts onto you. And just the concept of how kind of weird and twisted it can seem to put someone else's dead body cells on top of your own body. Like, to take someone's forgotten pieces of who they are and sew it into who you are. Like, I can understand the concept behind the horror. So he did a really great job of focusing on that at the beginning. But then, I don't know what happened. We went from this very horrifying, well-timed, cryptic, and beautiful scenes to the most campy and B-rated horror movie I have seen in a long time. Okay, so we begin with this hair needing blood, soaking into, I don't know, burger juices, and her cuts on her skin, and her landlord who deserved to be murdered. And then all of a sudden we're sitting in a salon and we see people dying like dominoes, and they're not even trying to make it look convincing. It just got rough towards the end, and I don't know what happened. Because I don't know if he was I sold this movie as a horror comedy, so I need to be funny now. But the first half of this movie wasn't funny, and it didn't need to be funny. It was doing what I think he set out to do for the full first half of it. And then towards the end, he was just nah, people need to laugh. Because there's almost you can't have a black horror film without some element of comedy in it. We can't really address the twisted nature behind the concepts that he is playing out without making people laugh every once in a while. And I feel like that was the entire point of Lena Waithe's character for the last 20 minutes of that movie, which just kind of didn't hit home for me. So it starts with the salon and the very campy ways that all of those people die, and it just continuously goes downhill from there. And it gets to a point where we're just watching somebody run around the office looking scared for 10 minutes of our day. And I don't feel like I got closure in this movie. I don't feel like I got understanding. I don't feel like everything that he was trying to do was closed off. I feel like he had a very complicated decision in how he was going to address weaves and wigs and natural hair for Black women, and what started off as a really strong point of view about being natural, about not wearing weaves, got twisted. It's like he got scared of trying to say what he wanted to say and backtracked. And I'm not even saying I necessarily agree with it, because like Anna's boss in the hair salon, I think women should be able to wear their hair however they want to. But I really do feel like he just got entirely lost towards the end of the movie and what he wanted to say and just decided not to say anything. And that ruined it, because this was such a well done movie before that. It was so well done that I had to stop it, go get my boyfriend, and see if he felt the same way I did watching that hair sewing scene, because I literally have never been so uncomfortable. That's how good it was. And it was just, I don't know, guys. Am I alone in this? Did you all enjoy the campy aspects of it? Because I feel like we had a really good possibility of having one of those cult classic films like Get Out that expresses so much undertones and issues within the Black community and outside of the Black community and how we're perceived by other races. And instead of following through with that, he dropped the ball. And I don't even know what I was supposed to take away from that movie at the end, other than maybe not to get a weave. I don't think that was the full conversation he was hoping to have. But I don't know. I could be alone in this feeling. Would I watch this movie again? Absolutely. Would I share this movie with other people? Absolutely. Because it has a lot of good starting points. And I feel like conversation after could be the finishing, because he didn't finish it for me. He just left us hanging. So if I had to give this a concession stand rating, I would say this was a pack of Twizzlers. It was better than Raisinets and getting absolutely nothing at all, but it wasn't a large buttery popcorn or that combo pack that we all wish that we could afford. If you have the same views as me, let me know. If you have different views than me, then definitely let me know, because I want to have a discussion about this movie. Let's talk about how we felt about it. Please tell me you were as uncomfortable as me. I don't want to be the only one out here feeling weird. But I guess that's just how people are. We like company. But yeah, guys, that was just a little movie talk with me. Be sure to leave a call or a text on the CW Network hotline, 347-719-3350 with your thoughts. Be sure to follow me at DS Walls and also follow the network at CWFP. But let me get out of here. I have been your host, and these are my views from the back row.
This is the CWF Network, where we bring you big content in small pieces. Follow us on Instagram at CWFP_. Okay, bye.